Perfect. So I'm actually going to start. I now continue. Um, I've got something special to me. I'm going to present to you today. It's actually one of my last projects I did in my apprentice school, and it's a project that I actually quite like because it helps you understand how attackers actually work and what they do. And in our case, it's actually so an attacker uses command and control. Command and control is a server that helps an attacker to actually gain control and keep the control over an infected device. So we're going to explore today how an attacker does this, and I got multiple slides and even some advanced. I don't think we can fit it all in one session, so I'd actually think we're gonna cover the basics and see how far we can take it so we can continue at the next time, because like I said, I don't think we're gonna make it to the finish. But let's see how far we can go, and feel free to ask any questions. I'm here to answer them. I've actually put in dedicated slides, so please answer at ask at the dedicated slides so we can focus to first cover the basics and hopefully answer your questions already in the slides. So who am I? I'm Tobias. I actually work as a cybersecurity engineer, and well, it's called red team and penetration tester, but I normally like the cybersecurity engineer because somebody not known or not knowing the field could maybe get the wrong gist of saying red team penetration tester. So I'm a practical unit penetration tester certified and currently doing Podswigger and offensive security cybersecurity professional. And I do the topics of web pen testing, phishing, and social engineering. And well, I had an idea and wanted to make it a reality. I wanted to put security to the test. Control instead of trusting what the people tell you at the defending part. And I wanted something that's easy to use, that has a nice UI, and hopefully it doesn't cost me too much because I just have my job and I don't make enough money to throw it out of the window. And those tools can get pretty darn expensive. So I'm going to present to you something that's practical. It's really used by cybercriminals as we're speaking. It's user-friendly and application and maintenance. It's clear to evaluate because it's made for pen testers, and we have the ability to have better reporting, which of course is important for my job, because if I would do it as a real attacker, I wouldn't use it, because there are better tools out there, but this one is the best to help you understand, so I chose it. Our goals today are to actually learn how do attackers operate, because in understanding, we learn how we can better defend against them. We want to keep it simple, because I don't want you to not learn anything today. Today is to learn. So please ask any questions. I'm here to answer them, even if it might feel stupid, okay? I'm here to try to bring this topic to everyone. And I made it very simple with animations and try to explain every step. And hopefully I'm gonna make it fun, because all of you are probably unpaid to be here, as the same as I am. So if it's not fun, I'm sorry, I tried my best. First, to understand how does a hack really work, we need to understand the anatomy of a compromise. It's normally a 7-step chain, and that chain is called cyber kill chain. It normally consists out of those 7 steps that an attacker uses first to reckon an environment, to find out what is available, what could be abused, what is actually attackable. He then tries to find anything he can weaponize against the company he tries to attack. Then he considers how he can deliver that weapon, because every infiltration in every spy movie, that spy has to get his weapon in there somehow. If he conceals it on his body, if he conceals it somewhere in the building, he has to get that weapon in there. It's the same job as a hacker. So once he's in there with that weapon, he needs to use that weapon. And once he used it, well, he's probably done his stuff. So we are going to focus on the last 4 steps, because those are the really interesting parts. The first 2, well, are just preparation. To understand why I explained this to you, I still have to explain a few things more. So we need to cover the basics. What is a virtual machine and what is Docker and why we need it? A virtual machine is an overlay that we actually use to not use a real operating system to emulate applications in a sandboxed environment. Due to that, we don't have the risk to directly run it onto our system, and with a virtual machine, we have that dedicated layer to help us defend. Well, virtual machine sounds great, but why do we need Docker? It's just another virtual machine for most people. Well, it isn't. I'm just gonna actually show Docker in comparison to you, and it's a very simplified demonstration. But actually, Docker is not just an overlay. It's an emulation on a level that actually helps you to only virtualize the most critical important parts. And those parts are the parts that change, that need changing. And Docker treats it differently than virtual machines does. Virtual machine needs a hypervisor to actually run, and on that hypervisor an operating system itself to run. Well, let's install Windows. When was the last time you installed Windows? Currently it's around like 20 gigabytes. So if you got a lot of virtual machines, well, it's gonna take up a lot of space, because every separate virtual machine is gonna take up at least the bare minimum of that installation. And that's where Docker comes in. Because on the left part, I actually split it up between 3 different virtual machines to help you easily understand. Each of those machines needs its own Windows. So we got 60 gigabytes. Docker sadly doesn't yet support Windows. I'm also happy it doesn't, because I don't like Windows too much. But as you can see, I can put all the 3 different virtual machines into one Docker. Well, it sounds kind of weird, and I don't even need an OS. Well, and that's actually the magic of it. Docker is not just an emulation layer. It actually helps you to only get the most critical system components that you need. So you don't need an operating system. You can simply spin up a compose file that consists out of what does that system need to run, what networking does it use, if it uses any, well, and do you want to give it a name? The resource management and everything else is handled by Docker itself, the client. So if you use multiple different Docker machines, that resources are split and shared across them. So you don't even need to handle resource management. You only need to handle Docker and its containers. So Docker has a lot of benefits. I listed a few of those. I will not go into too much details. I think they kind of speak for themselves, and I can explain them to you. If you're interested, feel free to talk with me after the show, but I'm going to focus on the most important part for us, which is the modularity, portability, and versioning. Because we're going to build a C2, and we need those parts. To Mythic. Mythic is an open source implementation of a command and control framework. That environment is here to help us, attackers, to have a few simple components to have it get running. Well, it needs a core system, like an operating system. It needs agents. An agent is the builder for our payloads. So our malware that we're going to build, we're going to need agents to run that payload. Then we have profiles. Profiles are for communication, because every malware should call back, because otherwise what's it doing? Like, I don't see any benefit. But then it wouldn't be command and control, it would be just command. And well, we need a wrapper, because may my pronunciation be wrong, I didn't mean a rapper, I mean a wrapper. And the thing is, we needed to await antivirus, to endpoint detection response. We need a wrapper because most malware today gets detected. Good for us and bad for them. How does it look? It's very simple actually. The dashboard is nothing great in particular, but also I think most of you would actually understand it if you see it for the first time. Because you see the most important stuff. You see how many commands you did, what commands you did, what's your current activity, how many clients are actually calling back, how many clients are still alive. Because that's a thing that you learn if you work with CTUs. Once you infected a client, it doesn't mean the client is going to be infected forever. Who of you has resetted or reinstalled their PC after suspecting something might be fishy? Well, at least it's not just one person, but it's actually a tactic to help you. And one thing we are actually going to learn: when was the last time you really rebooted your phone? Because if it's not today, it could actually mean it's too late. That's the fun thing. Malware today is mostly run in RAM, because if it's on the system, it's easy to detect, because everything that's static, it's easy to decompile, easy to understand, and easy to reverse. Hey, that behavior is malicious. But as it's alive, while it's running in RAM, it can actually hide itself. It can disguise and conceal itself. It can attach itself to other systems and processes. So if you restart your phone and that malware has no persistence, well, you might have been one of those connections I don't have anymore. And that's your goal. And that's what we're going to learn today. And I'm now going to go to the next step, to containers. We have a lot of different containers in Mythic, because we're not actually limited to just Windows. We're not limited to, let's say, a web browser. We actually have it all. If you know the device, it's quite likely exploitable and has a ready-to-use malware builder for it. So please always take care of your devices, and we're going to learn today how you might recognize an attack and how you actually might be able to make the attacker part a little bit more difficult. In our core system, and what I'm going to demonstrate in the next presentation, is going to be our current system config, and I just put it here. You probably won't recall it until the next time, but this is what I'm going to be demonstrating for the next run. So let's get back after we just understood all the basics, and now we're going to play it. We're going to see how the anatomy of a hack runs. And well, we got Toby here, and Toby want to hack a bank. He wants money, like everybody does. And the thing is, his job doesn't pay him enough. It's as simple as it is. The motivation is money. It always has been. It quite probably is gonna be it for a very long time, until we bomb at each other until obliteration. But until then, well, he has a motivation, and he researches the bank to find an email address. And well, it's a Windows environment, because many banks are, and most companies use Windows. So that conclusion is quite obvious. And just as I stated, that name is just fictional. It's no reference to any real person. It's just so nobody of you feels offended, and I can use my own name, so none of you will be somehow disappointed. Then we go to the next. Well, Toby doesn't know how to hack that bank, but he has an idea. He has a Mythic instance, and well, he could use the Apollo container, because Apollo is to generate an exe for Windows clients. So he needs to communicate, and he's lazy. And to make it simple, he uses HTTP. HTTP is a protocol used in normal web browsing, but without encryption. I will show you in the live demonstration why we use HTTP, because I can then easier live decode with you how such a package looks. And we can easier analyze how a beaconing works. I'm going to explain that topic in the advanced part. So just remember it if you're still in there. Then he creates that exe, and he calls it cat.exe because he likes cats. It's a very simple guy. And well, that exe, he want to deliver it, but when was the last time you got an exe in your mailbox? Like, probably never, because exe are very known to be quite malicious if they're sent as an attachment in a mail. So how is he going to deliver it? Well, there are, luckily for him, open source projects to simply remove that exe, to wrap it in something else, because that's his goal. And he uses that wrapper, and well, he makes a cat.pdf. And we're gonna explore on what file types might be unexpectedly dangerous later on. And just to pre-warn y'all, any file extension is dangerous. It doesn't matter what extension it is. It matters from where you open it and if you trust it. So whatever it is, always try to trust your gut, and please double check if you're not sure. Any extension can be used and will be used. And attackers just need to be a little bit crafty, and they're gonna probably pass all your antiviruses and defenders, so you need to use a logic, because your logic is the strongest tools you have against us. Well, and he sends it. Very simple. And like I said, executables can also be signed, and some very stupid mail or spam filters actually let them pass if they're signed by Microsoft or stuff like that, which is very disappointing, but I don't want to call names, so you can probably guess which spam filter used to let exit pass signed by Microsoft. Let's get back to the exploitation chain. That's our part. Well, we gotta wait, because Susan doesn't open that mail instantly. She probably has to sleep, to work, and she opens it. And once she opens it, it goes rather quickly. It uses the HTTP profile to connect back to the Mythic server, adds the active callback back to our dashboard we just saw before, and Toby has that wonderful ping that says client called back, and he knows from which malware, what email, how he's campaigned to get that callback. And well, now he can use that callback. He connects back to the Mythic instance, he uses the HTTP profile, and creates a bidirectional communication. This is a very simplification of how we communicate. I'm gonna cover the communication in the advanced topic a little bit deeper. And well, he now has access to the bank as Susan, because he has controls over that user with the permissions of that user. And in the advanced part, the attacker is not going to stay in that exe or in that PDF. He's going to attach to different processes. And if he's good, he's going to make it persistent. So every time your PC boots up, he's going to be there. And there's not a real way to actually detect it, except what I'm going to cover later. And well, we got to the first Q&A part. If you get or got any questions, please ask them now. Afterwards, we're going to deep dive into the more advanced topics. So, yeah?
Usually, I mean, what would Susan do? Like, what, let's suppose she opens a PDF. Like,
yeah.
what are the contents of it? Because what usually I would look, because if I open a PDF and it's like completely unrelated to my job, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. I would probably let someone know, probably someone on IT.
Yeah.
Is there anything the IT guy can do? Like, okay, you opened it, is there anything like we can do so this profile cannot connect to us anymore? Like, okay, I made the mistake, I clicked by accident. Well, is there anything we can do?
Yeah, of course, like IT can do a lot. The first thing I actually would recommend is to use that same PDF, and please keep it, because a very good threat actor is actually going to replace it with a harmless file, because he doesn't want it to be analyzed. If the threat actor is lax, and hopefully most of them are, I don't think your threat profile is anywhere near that level, you can actually use that file and put it into any.run. Any.run is a website that actually is a fancy virus scanner. You just need an account. That account is free, so I really recommend it. And you just upload that file, and you got access to a virtual machine that opens that file for you and shows you all the internet connection it does, if it changes any registry keys, if it calls a command in the backline, everything. And anyone in IT can easily understand what it does, because the main thing is, if you're not tech savvy and you open that file, you're probably not going to see any difference to a normal PDF. And if the attacker is good, he uses something that's obscure, something that's not normal. So he probably attaches a link or whatsoever to then use an exploit he made, or something that's custom. Because everything that is normalized gets detected very, very easily. So if it's somehow weird that you get that email, try to not open it. Because an attacker preys on a few key emotions from you. Your curiosity, your authority wanting to behave, because if police writes you and they send you an invoice, you're probably gonna check it, because what the fuck did I do wrong? But police probably doesn't send you an email ever. Then we got like envy. people are very envious, and it's like, how should I put this, fear. Because if you have any fear of consequences, if you have any fear of, hey, that person might hurt somebody, and the nice part is people want to help, and that's, in my opinion, one of the most effective, but I kind of personally dislike to use in phishing campaigns, as I do them professionally, and I don't want to prey on people that just want to help, even if they're sometimes very easy targets. But if you want to help, even if you want to help, please try to figure out if you just want to trust your gut on this project, because gifting money or trying to help some family after tsunami, it's a nice gesture. You want to help, but who guarantees you that that money is gonna go there? Like, do you even know the project? And the thing is, in current social media, phishing is on a very, it's on a level. I'm going to show you a few slides in a later slide. It's not as easy as it was to detect and actually to shut down. So it's your logic that actually helps you to avoid being a victim to phishing. Yeah.
You mentioned before, like, you can package different access into other files.
Yes.
Like the PDF and Word and Excel and whatever.
Yeah.
I understand you get the pop-up. Do you want to activate the whatever active content when you open the Word,
Oh,
for example?
it doesn't always need active content. That's the fun stuff about it. Like, sometimes you can attach to the PDF process itself, and it gets executed once you open the PDF. So with opening the PDF, it's already too late.
But isn't that a fundamental, like,
A flaw?
design flaw of, like,
It is.
how these things got implemented? Like, even with the pop-up, that was like the admittance of Microsoft being like,
Yeah.
yeah, we can figure this out, have fun with it, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like, great, thank you.
DocX and all macro-enabled Office stuff, you probably encountered it at least once in your lifetime, that you open an Excel or a Word that says, hey, do you want to enable macros? I would literally never recommend it, okay? If the company tells you to do it, well, then it has to be fine. But for an attacker, using that macro is very, very easy. Regarding the file types, I'm gonna cover it in a later slide a little bit better.
Okay.
So I'd actually continue. Does anyone still have any basic questions? Because you really need to understand and get the most basics done to understand the advanced slides.
Really
Yeah.
quick one. Is it ever dangerous to just open the mail without opening the file?
There have been exploits to actually, in Outlook, with the preview panel, but those get patched very, very quickly, and let's be honest, you're probably not in that threat scale, then an attacker is going to use such an exploit on you specifically. So I would trust most clients, but not all clients. So please don't use software that's outdated or like the previous presenter, 10 to 15 years old. I would not open anything from the internet from there. So then let's get to the interesting part regarding the advanced slides. Well, we now know a little bit better how we actually have to address this. And we now know, okay, we need to gain initial access somewhere. We need to gain that execution of somebody like Susan, and we need to avoid getting blocked or flagged. Then we need to retrieve that callback, and we need to stay covert, because otherwise we're not going to stay connected. It sounds easy, and I made it sound easy, but it was a little bit very simplified what I just presented to you before. But it hopefully helps you understand the next stuff, because we need to define some goals. Our goals is we need to find a harmless file type, or at least considered harmless. We need to know how to wrap or sign it. We need to decide how to stage that file, and what way you use to communicate. Well, those are a few extensions. Like I stated on the bottom, it's not complete, but I didn't have any more space or motivation left to research more. Even after over 10 years being a capture the flag player, literally having daily contacts since I was a kid with cybersecurity, I don't know like 2/3 of those extensions. Okay, and the bottom right, are the summary of the extensions that are mostly used by malwares today as we're speaking right now, and they are mostly unblocked. And fun stuff is that extension, CPL, it's a Windows control panel locator. And it sounds like nothing dangerous could ever happen. But the fun thing is Windows is very bad at scanning it, and even some very good scanners like CrowdStrike weren't able to scan it until like 2022, which is very, very bad because that file type exists like since the XP ages. So, well, attackers have their possibilities. It's your job to know no file is safe. And if you don't know the extensions, please trust your gut to not open it, okay? And especially if it asks you to download any software to open it, do not do it. Except your IT, somebody you know, is telling you to do it. And please double check that person is who they claim to be, because if it's an email and he says it's your IT guy, it might be me. And you don't want it to be me, because otherwise we're gonna have a little chat, and in the chat you're gonna learn that stuff to not do it again. And now let's say we're gonna make it reasonable. As you stated before, there are a few file extensions that you probably know that are quite known and they just work. And as I stated, VBS script, you probably know from the XP ages. It's old, like really, really old, but it's still used because it's still effective. And like as an example, XLL, exe, or as an example, BATS, or those CPL files, they sometimes simply don't get flagged because many antiviruses are actually static. What does that mean? Why is an antivirus static? Because otherwise it would use way too many system resources. So why and how do they make an antivirus static? Well, they want to make it simple. They want to make it effective. And they want to make that one device gets sacrificed to protect many other devices. So it's simple. The antivirus scans only sometimes. And if a malware researcher finds malware, he's gonna scan it once, define it as malware, and he generates a so-called hash. That hash is, let's say, magic number that uniquely identifies exactly that file with that content and all its data. That hash is unique to it. So he then uses that magic hash, unique ID, to identify exactly that file. And if that file gets downloaded on your PC and it's already flagged with the antivirus, well, your antivirus is gonna call and say, hey, that's malware. He doesn't even need to look at it. He only needs to know, hey, that ID matches the ID of that file. Because its content whatsoever are unchanged to the known malicious file. And so those static malware antiviruses, they sound great, like they sound like they could work, right? Well, wrong, sadly, because somehow decent malware developer actually just repacks them. Like he just changes tiny bits of code and it's a different hash. It can't be traced. It's not the same hash. So the antivirus says, hey, that's trusted, that's fine. I don't know, it can't be malware. And if you use a static antivirus, you're probably a private person, because most behavior analytic antivirus, they cost money, and they cost quite a lot. So the only tool you got, except money, if money is not your stronghold, is your logic, to not open the file in the first place, and hope that you're not that type of high priority target that gets exploited with some high level 0-day where you can't even defend from. And like I stated here, those that are listed here are very nice because most of them allow multiple scripts or jobs, however you want to call them, in just one file. So I can use different languages, which makes it even harder, even for behavioral engines, to detect that it's malware, because it's just a few different programs, just a chill program, nothing else. And the only thing is, an exe is very well detected. So I just want to list the cons. If you don't encrypt it, if you don't try to deobfuscate or obfuscate your files, it's still gonna be known. So bad malware is probably just landing in a spam or getting deleted before it's ever getting delivered to you. To the initial access, like I stated before, we used a very simplification with the HTTP. HTTP is a protocol that's not encrypted whatsoever, and if Susan opens that file, it directly connects to the IP address. If it's domain name, like google.com, that google.com gets translated to an IP address where that server is hosted. In our case, well, let's say it's that IP. I literally made one up random. And, well, if an exe calls an unknown or known malicious command and control server, well, that file is not going to stay. That file is done. It's literally instantly deleted, especially in a bank, because banks use behavioral analytic to try and find me before I'm in there, or infect their whole infrastructure. So I got an idea. Well, how about we make it a little bit different? Because our initial exe might be a little bit large, and large files that call back to an HTTP server or an IP directly, well, they are kinda obviously malware. And it's the same for any detection. They try to find something that's malicious. And in our case, we now execute it and we use something called cloudfront.net. Does anybody of you know what that domain is? Yeah? It's from Azure. And Azure, you probably, if you're not in IT, you might have heard it, but you probably don't really know what it is. Azure is a service by Microsoft. You probably connect the dots and see a re-emerging pattern, but don't be alarmed. It's just a Microsoft site, right? So Azure, a service from Microsoft, well, let's detect it, okay? Hey, that domain is trusted. Why? Why is that domain trusted? Even if we know it's malware. Well, the thing is very simple. Azure is a hoster. Microsoft hosts and rents out instances like IP addresses, domain names, computing, virtual machines that you can use. So what does an attacker do? Well, I rent an instance for a few cents the hour, and I use that instance with its IP or the randomly generated domain name to abuse it for my phishing campaign or for my malware delivery. And well, the thing is, let's say you block it, okay? You're the IT guy. You say, firewall, that IP, never connected. Okay, well, and 5 minutes later, I got a different IP, also from Azure. If you keep blocking and repeating that pattern to block that IP, well, one time you actually block all Azure. Well, then you probably don't have contact to any of your clients anymore, because all of those use Azure too. And if you can't use those websites, well, what are you gonna do? And the thing is, that's the nice thing. You are one of the trees in the forest. If you're good or if you're bad. And for me, that's good. For you, that's very, very bad. Because you can't really block it. Because if you block that, you might have blocked your next potential client. So you're just kinda in the medium. What can you do? Well, what do I do is now the question. And the question is very simple. Well, I made the initial stager tiny. So the initial executable is very tiny. All it does is connect to my trusted domain and retrieves a bigger file where I actually packed all the commands that I want to have on that loader, on that machine. Because the initial file should be tiny. Because some stuff under 25 kilobytes doesn't even get scanned. So if it's tiny, it might pass the obvious detection. It might be obvious as, sorry, I don't gonna swear, I'm not gonna swear it, but if it's too tiny, some stuff simply ignores it because it's too much system resource to scan it, which is stupid in my opinion. And I then load that file, that content, live into RAM. Like I stated before, loading it into RAM gives me the possibility to be flexible, to be alive, to not be a static file that needs to call itself. Because if I'm not a process that is run, what are you gonna kill? Because if I'm just somewhere in the RAM or attached to another process, then you have to find me. And if I switch the processes every few minutes and attach to higher privileges processes, well, you can't kill every process, especially with normal user privileges. So you're kinda hopefully plugging the cables soon enough, because the longer you keep it running, the more I'm gonna spread and have more control over the system. So again, as you can see with the little arrow, we retrieved what we wanted. We got access as Susan to the bank, and we can load with the bidirectional communication any command, any tool, anything we need on that client once we need it. Of course, the bigger the files are that we're going to sideload, and the bigger the new commands are that we add to our program, the likelier it is that antivirus is going to catch up and say, hey, that behavior is dangerous. So there is a little presentation on how that actually might look like. So on stage 1, I make like a simple little bug. Okay, it's a PDF. It's something that's very small, something you don't even realize that happened. But in the background, it called that domain. And on that domain, actually, I'm connected there. And I host that file. Okay, and in that file, it has no contents. But the information that, hey, dear client, you now need to connect to this one, okay? Please do that for me. And well, the client is very nice because he's controlled by that little bug. He doesn't know better, okay? And he uses that domain. As you can see, it's also an Azure domain because there are way too many of those. And now he downloads and sideloads the stuff that I need. To go to the next step. How do we communicate? Okay, because the only thing we did so far is infect the client. We now have our initial access on the device, but we haven't talked to the client yet. Well, but the client would want to talk to us. So we open that connection via CloudFront and try to sideload something. Well, now we have the issue. That's a bank. That's not your everyday average Joe that has no static or only static analytic. He can do nothing. And with a bank, it's different. That bank is gonna analyze what that file does, and if that file connects even to a trusted domain and then tries to sideload stuff, well, that's kinda sketch. And well, that behavior is known malicious because many viruses did it in the past. And as the attackers get better, the defenders get better. But it's always the defender that needs to cover everything and everyone in its company, and the attacker only has to find one vulnerability at one person to maybe gain full access. And well, our attacker is now caught out, right? Like, well, I wish it would be like that. Like I stated before, there's a very nice feature. There are many of those domains. There's Azure, there's AWS, there's Google Cloud. Like, there are so many providers right now that you can't really block them, and attackers know it. They're just one of many. They just rotate their IP, their domain. What are you gonna do? You're not fast enough to block them. So you need to know how they work and understand what you can do. And that attacker is very smart. He makes it not so simple to analyze, because now he's trusted. Because, well, on one communication, he has the fast control. In that fast control, he communicates with the server. Hey, do you need to do something? Do you have anything for me to do? And if I don't have anything to do, it's just a keep alive ping. Okay? But if I have something to do for the client, I just retrieve a little bit of information and put it at that domain. And the client is going to retrieve it and then do it and retrieves that file or future commands, bigger stuff from another domain. And he does that very slowly. He doesn't do it at one time, getting the whole exe. That would be obvious. Or getting the whole shellcode. It would be way too obvious. He does it in very little chunks. Stuff that probably gets interpreted as somebody left a tab open. Somebody forgot to close a program that calls back to its developer. Like, it gets simply somewhere under the flow. No firewall is gonna ever detect it. Or you got very good IT that's gonna exactly know what to look for. And we're gonna cover that in a future topic. And now we also add randomness. Because if we add randomness between those calls, it gets even more difficult to analyze. Because if the first call is like 5 minutes, 13 minutes, 2 minutes, how are you going to detect it? It's not frequent. It's not always. It's sometimes. The slow one sometimes takes days. I got time. I'm not detected. I got any time I want. And I can act how fast I want. It's your job to detect me until then. If you reboot, well, I'm out. If you didn't, I got time. And if you don't reboot, I'm gonna be in. That's the part. So now we're gonna be a multi-stage pro. Okay, we're gonna define a few steps that a pro does. And a pro abuses very simple stuff because I don't want to make it complicated. In my case, I prefer DLLs. DLLs are, let's just say, for programs, extension libraries to help them do stuff. You probably know it from game dev, because in most game engines you can sideload or load future extensions in. And if that engine is an exe or something you installed, it uses DLLs. DLLs are like configuration files that help the program to do the stuff that it want to do. Like, let's say there might be a 3D animation DLL that's only there to help Windows to animate those 3D objects. And I'm going to use that DLL files because those DLL files are very nice, and well, I can use COM hijacking. COM is like let's say a system objectifier for a process. Okay, not directly a PID, but a process. And I have a very favorite of mine. And the favorite you're probably gonna know. If you like it, I don't care. It's a favorite of mine. It's Teams, because Windows 11 has it installed per default, and it's installed in the user profile. And if you're ever gonna be this close to a blue screen because you nearly, sorry, I'm not gonna swear, if you really use your system to the absolute maximum, okay, this close to a blue screen, there's one program that is gonna work even after Task Manager quit its job. And it's Teams. It's another Microsoft program that just gets that benefit of the doubt. Well, it's trusted, right? It's a Microsoft operating system. Why wouldn't it be trustful? Like, why couldn't it be trusted? Well, I can use it for XLL persistence. I can literally add another DLL or modify the DLL, and every time the program gets loaded, I'm back again. I have the connection again, and you're talking to me again. And that's very nice as an attacker, because I know exactly when you're going to be online, and I'm going to reach you all the time. You're going to be waiting for the call, because you have to have Teams open, right? Your boss is going to call any minute. And the nice thing is, it's an auto start. So I don't even have to wait for you to open it. It's going to be opened once you're logged in. It's one of the first programs that's going to start once you open your PC. It's in the background too. And it's trusted, because you know it. You use it probably daily in the shop. And well, it's quite powerful. But back to the interesting part, the communication, because we were actually at the communication, and now we're going to cover a topic where I'm quite surely going to lose most of you all, but I'm going to try my best to help you understand it. I can't guarantee that you understand it. Feel free to talk to me after the talk, and I'll try to help you your best to understand it. Well, like I explained before, it's normally like this. An attacker uses one domain to make a lookup. Okay, hey, can I reach that? Because if my malware is not going to reach the internet, well, it's better going to be deleting itself, because otherwise it just gets added to a pile of known malicious files. And I don't want that. And I also don't want the malware researcher to know how my file acts, because once they know the behavior of my type of malware that I develop, well, they're gonna look for that behavior, and I don't want that. I want to use my Teams. And well, so we use a very interesting part. That domain lookup is going to redirect to, let's say, the IP address we used before. That IP address is used by me. Well, and now comes the interesting part. We actually use that IP address and have a pool of IP addresses. Like I stated before, there's RDS, there's Asia, and all of those have IP addresses. Well, by now it's kind of known that if I only pivot from Asia IPs to Asia IPs or use AVS IPs, at one point it's still behaviorally detected, because even the defenders aren't dumb. So the attacker needs to think of something. And it's very simple. Well, if I got your device, why don't I use simply your device? Because all of you got different IPs. All of you got a router at home. Every one of you has multiple IPs. And I can simply use your IP once I get your device. And if it's your camera you didn't update at home, if it's your fridge, if it's Wi-Fi connected, I might be able to use it for exactly its IP and only its IP. I don't need anything else. I can be as specific as I want. And now it's simple. That malware calls home to that IP address that I give it on the DNS. Okay? Let's say it's the IP from before. Okay, that IP is known malicious. So if the malware calls that, well, it's not going to be affected and not going to be effective because it's detected. So as step 8 says, I simply change the IP at the domain server level and I have a different IP there, and I try it as long with a pool of different IPs, because if I stage the malware, I'm gonna pre-pack it with a few different domain names and a few different IPs that I know that I'm gonna control for the next few months. And if you ever open it, well, it's gonna try all of them randomly until I get a callback. And if I get the callback, well, I'm gonna stop my process, I'm gonna stop my chain. And as you can see, this DNS is a single point of failure for an attacker, because if you block this DNS, this malware domain.com, I'm gonna be out, because you can't actually retrieve the IP addresses I got in a pool ready for retrieval. So attackers just said, what about if we use multiple DNS names? If we just use many of those? And that's the current tactic. We just use many of those, like a lot of those. And the thing is, that's the point where I'm standing, because I'm actually, even if it doesn't sound like it, I'm one of the good guys. I try to hack you not just for fun, not just for money, because I get paid for it. I actually do it to help you. I want to help you understand it's very, 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 very difficult for a defender to keep you safe. And his job is so hard that it's kinda unfair to think he has you covered. Because even if he does his best, he has literally no chance. Because the second he does something, well, the attacker simply replicates it and does something new. He just adds +1, and we're gonna count to infinity until the attacker either has its goal or gives up. And that's the only two options. It's not until the defender wins. It's until the attacker gives up. And that's the current meta. And that's the sad part about it, because we can't really do anything about it. And we're stuck at this loop, defending against something that's so big that we don't know how to defend against it. We can't block it, we can't really protect against it. So I wanna make a little Q&A, because I think it's very important that we now cover the advanced topics, and in the next run we're gonna do a live demo. So if you got any questions, and you're probably gonna be there at the live demo, please ask them now. It would be nice. Yeah, sure.
I have a question to another topic. By the way, Teams, I think, is the end of the world, but this is another.
I understand you.
We all agree.
Yeah.
Since you're a Microsoft person, I have a laptop that I really like.
Yeah.
And it will only run Windows 10. I will not be able to update it. Is it really that dangerous in 2 months to keep that laptop with Windows 10?
No. And if you still have Windows 10, I'm gonna recommend you something. There is a free tool, but please, I just had a very long talk about what is legit and what isn't. Triple check that you download the legit one, okay?
Okay.
There's a tool that helps you to convert your normal license to a long-term support license.
Okay.
That long-term support license is, let's just say, semi-official, okay? And it's gonna keep you updated until 2032, I think. And that's the supported channel. Don't use Windows without any security patches after the date. You're literally free to shoot.
Okay.
And it's not instant that it's gonna happen, because the source code hasn't been leaked, and it hopefully isn't gonna be for a few years. But if nothing in protection is gonna be developed, well, everybody's gonna have fun with it, because they know there is no defender anymore protecting it. And there are a lot of companies, a lot of people that are way more critical, but you're just going to be a drive-by shooting. Because if I already developed the malware, why shouldn't I use it on everybody that uses Windows 10? Why should I only limit it for the company? If I got it, I'm going to use it. If you're one of those people that doesn't have the support, well, you're going to be one of them. Yeah?
Is there really no way to detect malicious DNS services?
There is. Let's just say it's quite complicated, but I'll gladly try to give you insight on how you can actually detect such malicious files. And it's very simple. Like I stated before, malware at its best, it's hidden if it's alive. So how can you kill it? Well, what if we never started Windows? Okay, that sounds stupid, because if I'm not going to start Windows, then I'm not going to use my PC, right? Well, there's a very cool tool. It's called Disinfect, and it's sold by the company Heise. They produce magazines in Germany, and that tool is every time on the magazine in June for free. That's a $6 magazine, €5, €6, probably dollars magazine, and you get the tool for free. Okay? All you gotta do is download that ISO file, burn it to a USB drive, plug that USB drive into your PC while it's booted off, start your PC from that USB, and you open a live Linux system. If you know Linux, Linux isn't Windows. We use a different file system. And the fun thing is, Disinfect has the capability to load the Windows drive that's installed into your PC in a laptop whatsoever, and we then have the possibility to analyze all the static and frozen files. Let's just say I use Teams, the DLL. I extended it. Well, it's not gonna be having the same hash. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be larger. It's not gonna be unknown or trusted file. And because it's different, it's gonna stand out. Because that's the thing. I can't hide if I can't move. And if I can't move, I'm easy target. And with Disinfect, you not only are able to freeze the system and load it without ever touching it, only read it and analyze it, you can then use like, I think 4 or 5 different trusted antiviruses with their license for a year to analyze any file on your PC. You can analyze the whole drive. And literally, if you want Disinfect, I can simply recommend it. You can buy the digital version of that magazine right now. It still costs, I think, 5 to 6 euros, and you get that ISO. The nice thing is you got TeamViewer on it. You can install it on multiple USB drives. You're gonna have actual signatures that are actively used by malware, and you're gonna have a lot of advanced tools with a TeamViewer client. And the TeamViewer client is very critical, because if you don't know how to analyze that malware, you could at least call somebody that does, who is then able to use the TeamViewer and use all the tools to analyze malware on that PC, wherever it is. It's your grandma, plug it a USB stick in, make her a 5-step way. Okay, probably not a grandma, because hopefully she doesn't use a PC and doesn't have to deal with that stuff. Let's just say your uncle, who's a little bit older than you and knows how to boot from a USB drive. Okay, it's not too hard, it's not too simple, if he knows how to do it. Okay, you're then able to help him troubleshoot, and you're gonna have all the tools you need available directly at your fingertips. You need Virus Total, you got it. You want to use any run, you can use it. You are safe from the device itself that might be infected, and you can even use Chara rules, which is a very fancy way of saying I'm gonna scan for behavior or known malicious code behavior structs that are embedded into, let's say, an official Teams DLL. And with those, a very, let's say, average skilled defender is able to detect rootkits and stuff that you normally would never even get infected with, and never ever be able to get clean. And you can then either choose to remove it or safely retrieve the data that you need. And let's be honest, you're probably not gonna search for the malware, and I totally understand you. It's a really, let's not say a waste of time, but what are you gonna do with it? Because you can't decompile it, it's useless to you, and if you add it to the malware pool, well, nobody's gonna say thank you. And the next day it's the same malware, a little bit different with a different hash. So the only thing I would actually recommend, get disinfect, check if your data you need is safe, copy it to a different USB stick, fully purge that device, okay? Like literally delete everything. Delete the BIOS, delete everything that could ever be somehow touched, okay? You need to delete it, because if that attacker is even a little bit skilled, he's gonna be there somewhere, and you don't want that attacker to be there forever. You want to keep the time limited, and I don't think, like, I wouldn't have the money to change my devices every year, because that danger is just around the corner. It's literally just one wrong link away to be delivered to you. So take care. It's the only thing you gotta do, and the only thing you can do. Yeah.
For like, okay, you can disinfect the drive, but
Yeah.
Presumably you want to save the data. If you get the data off,
Yeah.
you can just reinstall it, so you wouldn't necessarily need to check other files to find malicious software, just the data you want to retrieve. And this leads into the other part of the question, where it's like, okay, if my data is mostly PNG files, just like
Yeah.
pictures of family or whatever, because you showed mostly executable files,
Yeah.
would attackers be able to inject their stuff into PNG or MP4s or whatever?
That's the fun thing. Actually, they are able, but it's not the PNG that you know. PNG is just a protocol on how to save that data. Okay, it's just like, let's say, lossless. Have you ever heard of lossless, perchance? You're game devs, so I think you might have. So you probably know the difference between SVG and PNG. SVG, for those people that don't know, is a vector file. Okay, a vector file defines one point, let's say with the pixel black, and the next point that could be somewhere in relation until it isn't black anymore. And all those pixels between it, or however it is rendered, is gonna be black. And you define those vertices to actually help the program understand how it needs to color anything. PNG is a little bit different. PNG does the same thing but with pixels. It just knows that pixel has exactly that color code, and if you scale it up, it's going to be pixelated. A very well-known effect, and makes PNG. And the thing is, in those PNGs, doesn't only have to be those image data. There can be shellcode embedded. If you open it with a normal file browser, it's not going to execute, hopefully, except I found an exploit to your operating system that uses that file extension. But if I got already custom code running on your system, well, I can use the PNGs to hide my data that I don't want the system to know.
Okay, that would be like to web the second exit that gets executed.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
first one. But I'm more concerned and more worried about the first point of entry, essentially,
Yeah.
to keep no possibility of getting this chain started, essentially.
Yeah.
So if in PNGs, in MP4s, in usual media files,
Yeah.
or things that do not themselves get executed, there shouldn't be a possibility to execute normally. So if you go on a website or whatever, that wouldn't do anything. But if there's, for example, an exploit in the JavaScript engine,
Yeah,
or
exactly,
if you have an old Windows 10 installed
Yeah.
5 years from now, and they figure out that somebody programmed in a mistake, then they might be able to use that to have
Exactly.
a special kind of image
Yeah.
that then gets read in a faulty way, and this would then allow them to unbox it.
Exactly.
Unbox, essentially.
Yes.
But that is a very advanced exploit that would be usually you are, as you said before, like a drive-by victim with all the others,
Yes.
where a government, maybe America or China or whatever, or some other organization would use that to hack some other government and then you would be a casualty, or just unlucky because someone got lucky finding this exploit, like a smaller hacking
That's
group.
the fun thing. Yeah, exactly. You understood it perfectly. I'm very happy that I was able to convey that knowledge to you. The thing is, malware is only malware if it can be executed. If it's not executed, well, you can look at it, and it's safe. But the second it gets executed, it probably has a goal on how it wants to be executed. And if the malware knows exactly how that PNG is opened, it can abuse that behavior to try and open the stuff that the PNG doesn't even want to open. And the same with the JavaScript engine, whatever engine you use for any file type.
One example, for example, that I heard of some time ago was there was an issue in WinRAR where
Exactly.
when you
That
had
would be a perfect
RAR, which
example.
is presumably is like an image, it's just a zip
Yeah, it's a
compressed
archive.
file of like different data. And if you then uncompress it, there could be code in the RAR that would get executed when uncompressing it, so something would happen where you would not be expecting that something would get executed at this point in
I
time.
can actually explain that exact vulnerability because I tried to use it, but it's very complicated. It's a buffer overflow. Okay, buffer overflow, you probably heard that phrase. I don't know how many times in hacking movies. Buffer overflow is not so cool as you might think. It's very complicated and it's a pain in the buttocks to actually use, okay? And that buffer overflow happens because of a file type mismatch read. So if WinRAR tries to uncompress that archive, while uncompressing that archive, if that file has especially special crafted delimiters set to the file, while parsing that names, it actually escapes the process itself because the bytes overflow the initial value they should have. Because if WinRAR decompresses, it's not instant. It's a loading bar. And that loading bar are small chunks of that file that get decompressed. And if you produce the right string of delimiters at the right points, while it tries to use its chunks to decompress that file, you actually gain command execution. And with the command execution, well, it's gonna be malware again. And that's the thing. Attackers are gonna wait until a researcher like me finds a vulnerability to use it. And the third thing is, I'm gonna disclose the vulnerability to software producers, like probably you. I hope non-web devs are here because I'm one of their nightmares, and I already had people that were this close to crying, and I felt bad because I just want to help, and I know it's a lot, but they need to keep their stuff secure. Because just as a short reminder, we only got a little bit of time left. I'm gonna explain this topic that I just started fully, and we're gonna continue with the live demonstration on the next presentation. So just as a short pre-hope from my side, I hope most of y'all are going to recall at least a little bit of that information that I just demonstrated, and I will make a little bit of recall so we might can refresh our knowledge before we go to a deep dive next time. Back to the I do work at Blacklands, like I stated before, and yeah, ready to see it in action, visit my next talk. No, I made a very special animation because a person that side read the presentation yesterday asked me to edit it. And back to the fun stuff, I do work at Blacklands. Our job is it to hack your companies, and we're actually able to do it. And we are gonna give you a view through the glasses of an attacker. So, like in my presentation, you're gonna see how I did it, and I'm gonna explain it to you so you can understand and prevent it. And that's my job. I'm gonna be understanding the attacker to help anyone and everyone to defend. And for you, I got a little bit of merch on the left part, so you could actually have a look and know what we do, because we don't just do hacking, that's my job. We do from darknet monitoring to protection. And well, that's how I got my education. And like I stated before, this presentation is for educational purpose only, so I would recommend you to not abuse that knowledge and I only showed you how an attacker works, not how to do it. Okay, perfect. Thanks for your time. Hope you had fun and that entertainment part wasn't just something I wrote, but I hope anyone or all of you learned something and can take that knowledge back. Thanks for listening.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is that a trap?
It could be. It could be. You never know. You never know. But I actually edited it, I think like an hour ago. So I don't think it has been replaced until now. But you never know. That's
It's
the
an
thing.
exercise.
It could be. It could be. Like I got a little QR code here on my laptop. I wouldn't call it a trap, but it's a very known YouTube video. It's a very fun exercise for exactly people like you that ask those questions and other people that try to scan it before asking what it is. That's actually just a link to our homepage, so you can have a look at what we do and how we do it. Okay, perfect. Thank you.